Hello, listeners around the world, and welcome to season 2 of Quote Unquote with KK. Before we start, I would love to make a few formal announcement. As I had mentioned during the close of our season 1 grand finale, season 2 will focus on two tracks, healthy and wealthy, and this would be a fortnightly feature. The reason we discussed this in our season finale was the way the world has transformed in 2020 and looking forward to 2021. If we are not healthy, we cannot be wealthy, and hence we are going to talk about these two key themes in this year in our season 2. I also want to welcome our listeners from Pandora across the world and Daily Hunt in India and across the continent in this part of the world. I am also glad to inform you that our podcast, with the addition of Pandora and Daily Hunt, is now reaching to over 200 million listeners globally. So these were a few announcements I wanted to make before we start our season 2. Now, on this quote unquote on the health track, I would love to talk about the whole issues around the COVID vaccine development and what COVID has done in 2020. As you know, over 100 million people were affected with COVID, with 2 million deaths. And just to give the context on our talk today, which is COVID vaccine development, pain of 2020 and hope in 2021. As we had talked in one of our earlier podcasts in our season 1, where we had the vice chair at Mayo Clinic talking about the whole endemic and pandemic phase and what's the promise of vaccines under development. We now see that there are about 8 candidates in the lead. Some of them have got emergency approvals to start vaccination. From India, we have 2 vaccine candidates, AstraZeneca and Bharat Biotech, which have also received emergency approval from the Indian regulators, DGCI. This week itself, our Prime Minister announced the rollout, and we had mock trials, and we initiated delivery of 30 million doses to frontline healthcare workers in India. On the other side of the world, we have seen Pfizer Moderna vaccine receiving approvals and also started the program of immunization in the US with approximately 1.9 million doses being delivered. However, there were about 4,400 adverse events, which is around 0.25%. And there were a couple of deaths of some frontline healthcare workers, which obviously set the doubt on the Pfizer Moderna vaccine and the technology that was used to produce this vaccine. On the other sides of the world, there are issues being raised about around COVID, how it was handled, how the vaccine development and emergency approvals have been handled, and issues such as the Chinese vaccine, showing much lower than the initial efficacy of around 75%, and some of the countries now even declining to use these Chinese vaccines. So issues are mind-boggling. And then we have Dr. Swaminathan talking to the press earlier this week that another 12 months will be taken after all the data is provided, that there will be a final approval from WHO. It's a long drawn process and people are definitely confused. To put fuel to the fire, There's all this fake news on social media and all, which again is being fanned by political parties which are making statements. And this leads to a lot of chaos, fear in the minds of the masses. At a time when the world is moving to the largest immunization program the mankind has ever seen. To address all these issues, I have my good old friend and industry associate, Dr. Mak Jadavekar, who has been an expert in drug discovery for over 35 years. I had a pleasure to work and interact with Mak when I was heading healthcare and life sciences business at Jubilant, and he was heading the global programs and partnerships at Pfizer. Let me just take a few minutes in introducing Mak. He joined Pfizer after completing his PhD from University of Minnesota as a bench scientist, and over the years he was part of the team for R&D that developed Zoloft, Zithromax, and Viagra. He spent 28 years of his career at Pfizer, and then after retiring, he joined KKR, a PE firm, to do a buyout of Capsugel division from Pfizer in 2011. From 2011 onwards, Mak was honored a DLIT from Mumbai University at the recommendation of the President of India. In 2018, I had the pleasure of meeting Mak at a Lamborghini family dinner hosted in Mumbai when he was associated with the Lamborghini family, which was signing an MOU with the Maharashtra government under the Investment in Maharashtra Roadshow program. And Mak was actually instrumenting in bringing investments back to India. Lastly, Mak has been on boards of several pharma companies around the world and various think tanks. Welcome to the podcast, Mak. It's a pleasure hosting you. So, Mak, for a layman, what is a vaccine and what is a drug? Can you just give a very simple layman understanding to the masses? Where do we use vaccines and where do we use drugs?
Okay, so vaccines are supposedly have to be given to not to the patients, but to the healthy human beings, where you need to prevent, any kind of disease entering into your body, and that could be viral, that could be bacterial, that could be, any infectious disease. You need something, your bodies to prepare, some kind of a defense mechanism, and that defense mechanism comes through the antibodies that are created in your blood. So when the real viral, let's say, just take an example of a virus now. I mean, I'm not going to go into other bacterial type infections, but let's say for a viral infection, before the virus comes, your body has to be prepared to fight it out, and you have platelets, and you have phagocytes and all those things trying to fight the external attacks which are coming into your body. And in layman's terms, I mean, I'm going to go as simple as I can to describe this. Is like you need an arsenal prepared within you to fight out these viruses which are coming into you. And in order to make that possible, your body has to be prepared to get those ammunitions ready. And to get those ammunitions ready, there has to be certain biologic reactions which have to happen. There has to be certain immuno responses which have to happen. In order to have those happen, you need something that body needs as a so-called, what I call a viral vector, or you may want to call it a protein subunit, to enter into your body, which then that protein subunit can prepare those antibody production. And once the antibodies are formed, then you are you are ready to receive any attack from those types of subunits of viruses, let's say, and then your body can fight it out, and it will not make you sick. I mean, it may still make you little bit of a illness, but it will not make you sick to the extent of that you'll have to go to the hospital and have be on the respirator. So I think what it does is it prevents any of such things happening to you. And I mean, I'm not going to say that you will be totally void of any such illnesses, but I think the severity will be reduced to an extent that your body can take, and so that is a response to your question, as to why do you need vaccine. And drugs are something which are given to the people who already have the disease, and you want to obviously treat the disease maybe asymptomatically or symptomatically, and try to reduce those symptoms and try to cure you. Cure is a big word, and we don't tend to use that unless we have a proof of concept or have proven the word cure, because cure has so many implications. So we don't use the word cure, but we say, okay, we will try to remedy it, and by putting those remedies through, the drugs then help you essentially come out of it, because you are eliminating those bacteria or viruses out of your body. So that's the treatment. So and those are the drugs. So I think I answered your question in a long way, but I hope I did the justice.
So Mac, just for the clarity of to the audience, there are a lot of jargons being thrown on the internet, and people are now talking all these jargons. What are the phases for a vaccine development? How many phases does it go through to be finally cleared? And people are all concerned here that it's not cleared, it's cleared. WHO is making some statements here that it will take another year, 1 year, and people are really concerned. Could you just give us a brief about what are the stages that any vaccine or any drug that is finally approved for human consumption goes through?
Okay, I think again, I'm going to come to the layman's terms here. I'm not going to get into scientific jargon of any kind, because this is mainly for the people who have these questions, and really they are not the pharmaceutical or they are not virologists to get this answer. So what I'm going to say is, there are three main phases of clinical studies. Clinical studies are something that one does after the drug has at least shown preclinical safety. I mean, unless the drug is safe, you do not give it to any human being. You do some animal studies, you do some in vitro studies followed by some in vivo studies, which means you work through the system. So for the preclinical, you do those, and then once it shows that now at least you have a feel, and I'm talking now in the drug sense. For a drug, once the drug is proven that it has got it has got good safety profile in the preclinical studies, then what you want to do is then you want to essentially apply to the. And again, I'm going to use US FDA as a showcase.
Sure. Please go ahead. I mean, that's the gold standard anyway.
That is the way I have been trained over the last 40 years, and I'm going to use that. So US FDA has very strict regulations. It's a highly regulated industry, pharma industry, and nobody can dictate or control how the FDA should act, because it is not only a body which goes through, for the right reasons, big safety as well as efficacy profiles, and looks at drug in different ways. And I think there are IND, which is the investigational new drug application, which gets filed once they review your all preclinical data in animals and whatnot, and then they give you permission to go with the phase 1 IND. And for that, you have to conduct those phase 1 studies in healthy volunteers, not in patients. So that's a very small population of people that they conduct the IND in, and then once that phase 1 finishes, which can take, again, I'm not going to go through the timeline because every drug is different, antibiotics are different, vaccines are different in terms of the time frame. So I will not specifically go into that because it will take another hour to go through that. So what I'm going to do is quickly run through that. So once the phase 1 happens, let's say it takes 3 months, and then after that, then you have a phase 2A study where you are not just looking for the safety, but you are trying to see whether it shows any efficacy against a disease and whatever disease you may be targeting. So that's what it is looked at. And then phase 2A gives you a proof of concept. So certain receptors and targets, and those are studied in the phase 2. And then when that shows promise, then you do the larger population and do a phase 2B study. And then that's where it goes through several protocols, and you kind of say, yeah, it looks like it's working, it looks like it is safe. You do some dose ranging studies and whatnot, so which I will not get into details. But after you do that, then it says, yep, FDA will then have a pre-phase 3 meeting, and then they will say, okay, you are now okay to go through your phase 3 studies, which have larger disease population. It could be anywhere from 15,000 to 100,000. I mean, it's a huge clinical study, and that's where the majority of the expenses happen. I mean, when you say that the drug, when it goes through phase 3, I mean, you could be spending up to $1 billion to go through that, and it's a very expensive process. So only big pharmas have been able to do that in the past, and that's what happens to a drug. So I remember Zoloft and Zithromax and Viagra. I mean, we went through all that, and finally the drug comes through and it works. So that's phase 3. So this is for the drug. And vaccine, it's a similar thing. It can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years. For a vaccine, or even for a drug, it can take up to 10 to 15 years. I mean, so it all, it varies. So I'm not going to generalize it in any way, but it takes long time because you need long-term effects. You need many ethnic populations. You need so many variants that you want to study. So you don't want to be, finding out something when really the drug is introduced to the market, and then you find that there are lots of adverse events happening. So I think with that, I think there is a major FDA's responsibility to make sure the general population, when the drug comes out with the FDA stamp of approval, it can safely, the physician can safely prescribe that, and then public can take it. So there are lots of checks and balances here, and also FDA has some committees, independent committees that they set up because they don't want to come across as the only body which will approve it or not approve it. So there is an independent commission which has got nothing to do with the FDA, but they essentially take their permission or take their input into play, and then they say whether or not it is approvable or not, and then the FDA will say, yep, based on the let's say committee of 15 people, 14 went for it, 1 was against it, and then they will say, I think it's okay to go forward and do it. So that's a process which US FDA goes through, and it's a rightful process. And obviously there are other things that the US FDA gets involved in terms of your facilities, GMPs and whatnot. So I will not get into that part, but
Absolutely.
I think for today's discussion, I will just stay focused. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much, Mac, for describing this in a layman's, and which means billions of dollars go after creating one successful drug, and I'm glad you have been party to 3 of them in your career, which very few scientists have had that sort of an experience. Mac, let's roll back to the pain of 2020. You've been friends with couple of senators and also the folks who are heading the Trump COVID committee as well. What was the pain that the government and the folks at Capitol Hill were going through to ensure that the population and the people are protected and a solution to a vaccine is created at the earliest?
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into the political.
No, I don't want to talk the politics. I want to talk the science and
So I've been fortunate enough to know senators and congressmen of both parties, and I've been talking to many of them, and they are they mean well. They all the task force meant well, and I think it was headed up by Mike Pence, who is the vice president, and I had an opportunity to meet with him face to face and essentially talk about vaccines and whatnot. So I think in a sense, the government tried to do everything possible to lay out a map, and certainly I'm not going to look in the rear view mirror here and say what went wrong or what went right. I think I'm always looking forward to see how things we should look at now, knowing what we know now, and do it right. So I think with that I had a wonderful opportunity to bring certain senators and congressmen to India and introduce them to the right people and take them to the right things, and I remain friends with them, and so it has been a wonderful ride, and I've been trying to help in my way to make things happen, and again as I said, I'm now helping these things from outside. Now I'm not at Pfizer, but I'm helping companies like Pfizer from outside, and I'm also helping globally. One of the contract manufacturing firm from Korea has contacted me, and they are looking for my help, so I'm helping them as well. So again, there are different things I'm working on, and but I think time is now to kind of get ready to fight this COVID-19, which has really put the entire world in tracks. It totally came to total full stop, and I think now that the vaccinations have started, people are seeing the light after the tunnel, and I'm hoping that over the next 6 to 9 months these things will happen, and hopefully 9 months from now people will start traveling, and the business would be taking the new normal as against what we have seen in the last 10 months now, almost. March it started last year. So yeah.
Correct. Mac, again, Pfizer comes up with the recent efficacy data that has come out of the leading vaccines. Pfizer's vaccine is 95% efficacy. Moderna is 94.1. Sputnik, the Russian one, is 91.4. AstraZeneca is about 90%. Then the Sinopharma is about 79, and Sinovac is 78, and with the recent data, I think it has gone down to 50, and the Chinese government refuses to share data to the world. Very interestingly, there was a world poll carried out to understand the resistance to immunization in the population. And it seems that it is correlated to the efficacy of these various vaccines in different parts of the world, broadly. So people across the world are saying that they are likely to say yes to getting a vaccination from those developed in Germany or US, but are distrustful to taking a shot from the Chinese or Russian developed vaccines. Right? And this is where the whole hysteria and all this social media and fake news start building up. As a scientist, how would you allay this mass hysteria and fear in the people? Science is not divided, with countries or with, an origin of a vaccine of a country. It's for the betterment of humankind and to save the humankind. So what's your message to the people across the world and our listeners as a scientist, that they should not be concerned whether they should be taking Pfizer or a Moderna? What is the best approved for them they should be taking? And then I would love to talk about a little bit on your Pfizer and Pfizer vaccines future as well.
Yeah. No, I think, the efficacy that you talked about in terms of Pfizer being 95%, Moderna being 94.1%. I mean, see, these are, statistically almost the same efficacy. I mean, you talk 94 or 90 or 94 point, it doesn't mean much, because I think the key point here is it is efficacious. Okay, I mean, that's the message. And if it says, it's 50%, then I would worry about that. But I think if you say, it's over 70% efficacious, so most of the general public, who are healthy, would be protected. And if they do get, the viral attack, they may fall sick, but the severity of the sickness may not be as severe as you have seen in people who never had an opportunity to have a vaccine. So I think everybody should talk like, they are fortunate enough now that there is a vaccine in place. So that's number one. I wouldn't worry about these minute details and all the talk which is going on. And I will tell you, even in the flu vaccine, some people get anaphylactic reactions and shocks and all those things, very normal to have. It may happen in 0.1% of the population, but here, this may happen in 0.3% population. So those things are bound to happen. That's why I think what is happening is, when, at least I know from the experience in the US recently, I mean, I just talked to somebody who got Pfizer vaccine yesterday, and he said, they gave him a vaccine and they had to, wait for 15 more minutes in case, if he had any anaphylactic reaction to the vaccine. So they were ready with the EpiPen to give the epinephrine shot to counteract that reaction, and that's very normal. So I wouldn't, take it as a bad thing. I mean, this is like, everybody reacts differently. I mean, people have interactions with even drugs. Some people are allergic to even milk. I mean, so these allergenic reactions is a normal thing in people. So one shouldn't, point it to because of this vaccine that happened, and that is bad. No, you cannot generalize these things. You have to have enough things in play before you take a vaccine. You need to make sure, number one, that you are not allergic to things like polyethylene glycol, for example. I mean, I'm just giving you examples. So don't blame the vaccine because you get a reaction. Okay, I mean, it's bound to happen in some patients and some people. I shouldn't say patients because this is given to the normal human being. Population. Yeah. So I think, I wouldn't worry about that part, but I think you will, I mean, since millions are being given this Pfizer dosage now, I mean, there are going to be 6 or 7, adverse reactions you are going to see in the press. And then the press essentially, zooms in on those people who got that reaction. And so people generally, by doing so, it creates anxiety in people. And those people who really want to take it, they say, I don't want to take it because, this happened in this person. So again, not getting into too many details here, I think it's not because the Pfizer, because of any vaccine is bad. It's because your body reacts differently to that particular strain, and that's why you're getting the reaction. So I would put that at ease, saying, everybody, should have a vaccine, and there are people, I mean, Michael Pence got a Pfizer vaccine, what, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Kamala
And
Harris also took it, and Joe Biden also had a shot.
yeah. So they took it. I mean, it's like, they are showing people, look, we are taking it, so you better, also be prepared to take it. So I'm hoping, this will go away after a while. But I think, what I'm saying is, even if 70 or 80% population is vaccinated, I think there is a chance that you could have the herd immunity, which will happen, and then, we'll be back to the new normal. So that's my hope.
Excellent. Well put, Mac. I just wanted to talk a little bit towards the India story of the vaccine. We have Bharat Biotech and Serum Institute who have got emergency approvals. Their phase 3 data is expected from Bharat Biotech, I guess, by March. But they've already started shipping, not just in India, but outside of India, millions of doses under emergency approval to various countries in the world as well. What is the difference now you find between the West vaccines and those developed in India? Are there various changes, or are they, I mean, how do you find them different? Maybe from their efficacy, or if you want to talk a little bit on the platform or the science through which these have been developed.
Yeah, so these vaccines, I mean, I know AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, which has been manufactured by Serum Institute of India in Pune, is based on the attenuated or inactivated virus type of a technology, which is conventional technology, which has been used for many other viruses in the past. So there is enough data on those types of vaccines, and the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccines, those vaccines are based on the newer technology, which is called the messenger RNA technology, which is totally new, which is called essentially a protein subunit. That's what it is called. So because of that, I mean, people didn't know whether it's going to be successful, whether it is going to, have any issues with efficacy and whatnot. But I think everybody has seen it so far that it works very well. And if you want, I can describe a little bit of how it works. These Pfizer as well as Moderna, both of these vaccines use the mRNA technology, which is a genetic messenger the body uses to make the DNA code into proteins. And these are kind of packaged inside a, how should I call it? It's a fatty capsule called the lipid nanoparticle. Okay, I mean, that is right. How I would describe it as a for people who are non-scientists. And this nanoparticle then allows it to get into cells, because in order to get an entry into the cell where it has to be effective, it has to have the same embodiment to get inside that. So that's why you have to create these nanolipid particles. Otherwise, they would not even be able to enter the cells. So that's why. And then the messenger RNA instructs the cells to make that protein, which then triggers the immune system into action. And for the mRNA, coding, that part of the protein on what we call now the SARS-CoV-2 virus that binds to a receptor on human cells in order to gain the entry into the system or into the body, and then that vaccine makes the entirely that vaccine is made up entirety of this protein, which is known as the spike protein on the cover of the virus. Okay, so that's the mechanism, and using this full spike protein then allows the immune system to figure out kind of more ways to detect and attack the virus. Okay, I mean, that's the whole idea, right? I mean, to create that. And that chemical modifications to the messenger RNA may also explain some of these differences. And although the same dosage by weight was given to the people with each vaccine. The vaccine has fewer particles, and the full length messenger RNA is heavier. So you have to say that these things are messenger RNA particles, and that's why even the mutated strain that we are seeing currently coming from the UK or coming from South Africa, correct. I think Pfizer vaccine or vaccine from Moderna is effective against those mutated things, because this is a messenger RNA for the spike protein. So that's why it has been shown effective. I don't know whether they have tried the AstraZeneca vaccine against the mutated strain. I don't know the results of that, but I think Pfizer has shown the data recently that it is effective against those strains. So people feel very comfortable saying, oh, okay, so even if the strain changes, we are still covered by this Pfizer vaccine. So I know that much right now. So more data will come, and we will learn more. But I think so far so good. So that's the way right. That thing works.
Excellent. I would love to just talk a little bit again on the promise of the technology behind the Pfizer vaccine. Do you think that this same technology can be extended to treating cancer, cardiovascular, and other conditions where we still don't have proper drugs and survivability is a big challenge? Is this promising technology from a drug development point of view as well, that the world is going to see post the successful efficacy and effectiveness of the launch of the Pfizer vaccine? And that's what I see as the hope of 2021 and beyond.
Exactly. No, I mean, I think, there are lots and lots of hope now for oncologists, because the same technology, mRNA technology, can be used to fight, these cancers. And there have been some studies being done right now. And I don't know, Carico was the scientist who got who should get the Nobel Prize for all this. Who actually, invented that, and then went to BioNTech, and she worked with BioNTech and got all these things going. So there is lots of potential for curing cancer through these technologies, and I think there is lots of work which is being done as we speak. Obviously, it has taken a backseat right now because of the COVID, but I think it's a perfect storm, I would say, for getting the key to treating certain cancers. I wouldn't say every cancer or every tumor, but I think
this actually becomes a phase one, where the healthy population is getting a vaccination, and we are actually being able to test the waters of mRNA technology to further develop it to the sicker people in cancer, cardiovascular, and other conditions. I mean, I see it. That is the bigger opportunity and the rise of 2021.
Exactly, and I think that's what I want to say, that COVID-19, fingers crossed, may turbocharge all these processes, and the pandemic, which has led to this grand debut of messenger RNA vaccines, and their definitive proof of concept for sure. Already there are murmurs around getting these things into mRNA technologies for enthusiasm of from regulators, policymakers, that we could use this for cancer. So I think time will only tell, but I think this is a beginning of a good beginning to test out the different types of cancers. And they're talking about breast cancer, prostate cancer, skin cancer, pancreatic cancer, lung cancers, and whatnot. And so there will be something that we can remain hopeful for. And again, we'll see what time brings us. But I think that is a huge hope. And you are absolutely right. I think people are saying, hey, why not use this for something else? So I think we'll see more of that.
So that's the rise of 2021, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let me just change track and talk about Mak, his life learnings and his inspiration. There are a lot of scientists both in India and abroad who are looking forward to building a career in drug discovery and vaccine development, given what we have gone through in 2020. What's your advice to those followers of science and practitioners of science and who want to take up a career like you in drug discovery and create something fairly novel like a Viagra, which was, I'm sure that's a human need. It provided from a recreational point of view. So what's your advice to all the budding scientists and people who want to take up a career? And by the way, my daughter is in class 12 and she's also coming to Minnesota.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, I think, not everybody should turn into a molecular biologist or anything like that. But I think I see lots of good options for people to get into. Including, what we call, the real basic sciences and not get into something which is not of great value. So again, everybody has a different outlook, and obviously science is my core interest, and that's where I got interested, and that's where I entered into University of Minnesota. I got my doctorate in pharmaceutics, and then Pfizer essentially recruited me right there, and I stuck with Pfizer all lifelong because I knew that this company was innovation based, because that is the key. What is the company focus? Is it generic, copycat, or is this innovation? So no matter what you do, whether you are a scientist in a true sense, where you want to go for innovation, I think there are lots of areas that one can get into: pharmacology, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics. There are lots of areas. So I'm not going to be very, very tilted towards one way or the other, or biased against another one. No, I think depending on your interest, I think one should proceed, and I'm hoping that the people who are listening, they are looking at this as a way to succeed. And if you want to succeed, you have to look for what is going to be recession proof. And one of the areas of being recession proof is health sciences, and health sciences are huge. There are so many verticals in there, so you don't want to even count the number of verticals in there, but any vertical that you pick where your passion lies is the way you want to proceed. So even if it is epidemiology these days, being in the public health area, that's another huge area where things are happening. My son is at Columbia University. He's an epidemiologist, doing his doctorate. So again, it's a matter of people understanding what their passion lies, and once they understand where the passion is, go for it and go all the way. Don't stop in between and change your focus from, let's say, science to finance. It's okay to do it later in life, but have something as your core competency, and then build up your other areas to other facets of your career in a different way later on. So you can get an MBA later on, but don't stop your studies. Don't get into other things while you haven't mastered one. So that's my message.
Interestingly, Mac, I had the pleasure to be on the board of Pfizer India for 3 years. It was an interesting journey, and what you talked about your journey at Pfizer, I can completely empathize. Your 35 years at Pfizer were like my 3 years at the board of Pfizer India. A lot of learning and a lot of growth, and working with my peer board members and the directors, full-time directors at Pfizer India was a great journey for me as well. And I guess that's what the whole culture of growth, learning that Pfizer fostered in their DNA. I would say it's not mRNA, but their own DNA, company DNA, which is why it has been so successful in bringing out certain blockbuster drugs, even putting $1 billion to develop, say, a Zoloft or a Viagra, and now betting on a very, very new technology to actually prove the science and the efficacy around it, and time will tell how effective it is. It's great talking to you, Mac. I'm looking forward to interacting with you and talking to you. As a scientist, you have allayed a lot of fears, giving in your Pfizer background and my Pfizer background as well, around this whole controversies and effectiveness and efficacy of vaccines and whether we should take it or not and what not. I at least hope that our listeners have got a few key takeaways from our session today. Before I close out, I would love to thank Mac for giving his time and talking to us. Mac, I do hope you'll be taking your Pfizer vaccine soon as your time turns up in US. And I wish you stay safe and you are able to travel to this part of the world and also to South Korea. And I'm sure we will be meeting up soon, face to face back in India when the new normal happens, courtesy the whole global immunization program. Before I close, I like to make a special mention to our team, which has made this event possible, our sponsors, and our team behind the content. And I welcome back all our listeners to the next podcast, where we will talk about Wealthy. Thanks and have a nice day.
Thank you.